In December 2019, I released a video about the Kettenkrad and supposedly contains a major error, at least according to one person that provided visual proof with photos. Now this is an excellent example of the difference between knowing something and understanding something. First off, a bit of context. The video is titled Kettenkrad, Loved but Useless? ? Very important is the question mark. And in this video, Jentz, Wehner, a historian from the Military History Museum in Dresden, and I discussed the military usefulness of the Kettenkrad and looked also at the perception of the Kettenkrad by the troops, among various other aspects. I also might add here that there was one error from my side, which was that I interrupted the ends way too often. I'm sorry about that. Yet, let's get to the matter at hand. Someone posted on Facebook a rather long list of photos. These photos depict various Kettenkrads pulling guns, some of which we stated in the video that could not be pulled. Note that I don't show the photos here since I don't know of their copyright status and I don't have time to verify that. But to the matter at hand, one contained the following remark. Kettenkrad pulling a field gun and its crew should not be possible according to your Mr. Wehner. First off, Mr. Wehner is not my subject, so keep your condescending your to yourself. Second, the image does not show the 7.5 cm leichtes Infanterie-Geschütz 18 we were referring to in the video. This is rather obvious since the gun shield of the leichtes Infanterie-Geschütz 18 is not a straight plate like that of the gun shown in the photo. We are not entirely sure, but it seems the depicted gun is actually a 10.5 cm Leichtgeschütz 40. Thanks here to Doyle and Malte for helping me with the identification. Third, yet let us assume it was the correct gun. The problem is it only shows 3 guys on the back of the Kettenkrad, but the Infanterie-Geschütz 18 had a crew of 7 men, and those just don't fit on the Kettenkrad, no matter what you do. And this is the major source of misunderstanding, namely ignoring context. Before we dive into the data, let us look at some footage. Here's a video of a Kettenkrad at Stahl auf der Heide 2019, organized by the Panzermuseum Munster. At the same event there was also a Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251-7, which was the designation for the pioneer variant of the half-track. Now why do I show you the half-track, you might ask? Well, there was also the variant 251-3, which had the job of pulling the aforementioned leichte Infanterie-Geschütz 18, transport its crew and ammunition, to quote from Panzer Tracts by Doyle and Jentz, manned by a crew of 7, the mittlere Schuetzenpanzer IG Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251-3 was used to tow the 7.5 cm leichte Infanterie-Geschütz 18. Secondary armament consisted of an MG-34 and an MP, which is a submachine gun. A total of 120 rounds of 7.5 cm ammunition was carried. Starting in 1942, one Funksprechgerät, a radio set, was installed in front of the co-driver. Now one has to wonder why the Germans used such a large vehicle to pull a gun that supposedly, according to the picture reference, could be pulled by the Kettenkrad. For this we take a closer look at the data and the context at hand. The payload of the Kettenkrad, according to several sources, is 350 kg. Additionally, it had a towing capacity of 450 kg. As shown in our video, the 7.5 cm leichtes Infanterie-Geschütz had a combat weight of only 400 kg or 880 pounds, but a travel weight of more than 3 times, namely 1560 kg or 3400 pounds. Now why do I have travel weight? Sadly, I couldn't find that information neither in the armor regulation that describes the Infanterie-Geschütz, nor on the armor regulation about the Infantry Support Gun Company. Yet, according to the previous quote, 120 rounds were carried with a shell weight of 6 kg. This would mean around 750 kg just for the ammunition. Additionally, I could find some information in the second regulation, which notes below a graphic of the Infantry Support Gun setup of transport. Rifleman 6 is sitting on the ammo truck. The luggage shall be placed under the backrest and on the front seat between Rifleman 5 and 4. If the limber is unloaded, sandbags etc. placed in the tread plate must be used to provide appropriate weight compensation. Although I must add here that this was the setup for the Infantry Support Gun with a non-motorized unit. whereas the infantry support gun Jentz and I were standing in front was for a motorized unit. You can tell the difference by the wheels. Those guns for motorized units had rubber tires, whereas non-motorized units used spoke wheels. Yet back to the topic. The high travel weight is very likely to the additional equipment and ammunition that is not attached to the gun during combat. It might also include the weight of the crew, but that works only if we assume around 60 kg per person, which is very low since the soldier had quite some equipment of his own. Additionally, even with 60 kg per man, we reach a weight of 1,570 kg when we sum up the combat weight, ammunition and crew weight, which is about 10 kg above the provided travel weight. So what does this mean? Are these images faked? No, I don't think so, and I'm rather sure there also exist images of the Kettenkrad pulling a leichte Infanterie-Geschütz 18. And here is where context is important. Namely, the images shown by the commenter are likely referring to tactical redeployments, so short distances, yet not traveling over long distances. But this is the main job of a towing vehicle in a war of movement. Now this was a bit of an oversight on our side, since we didn't address that for short distances or special circumstances the Kettenkrad could pull more. Then apparently this was not an issue for anyone else, probably because they paid attention to the additional data we put on the screen, namely combat versus travel weight, as you can see here, with a reference to the original video. So in short, we were referring to regular operations and regular weight that a Kettenkrad could pull on long marches, not for short distances. As you can imagine, if you pull above the capacity of your vehicle, which is not designed for, the overall wear and tear increases, chances for accidents increase and other issues as well. Additionally, for people that know about German towing vehicles, this should not be a particular surprise, since the Germans had a naming scheme for their various towing vehicles, which actually included the number of tons the vehicle should be able to handle. Here's the list from a book by Spielberger, Doyle and Jentz that lists the following vehicles and functional names. Light towing vehicle, 1 ton. Light towing vehicle, 3 tons. Light towing vehicle, 5 tons. 8 tons, 12 tons, 18 tons. I think you get the idea. As often, the context, knowledge of regulations and details are important. So let's address the wider issue here. I sometimes see comments on my channel that cite some odd scenario or memory of a particular soldier as if these cases were the norm rather than the exceptions. Exceptions occur all the time and can be quite interesting, but we need to put them in proper context. We can look at how units or soldiers adapted to special circumstances, yet we should also be cautious, however, citing such exceptions as anything more than they are, as they are usually limited in time and space and to individual units or even soldiers, until proven otherwise. Remember, the Second World War saw several million men under arms for several years. There's a German proverb for this. Es gibt nichts, das es nicht gibt. Roughly translated would be there exists nothing that doesn't exist. As such, photographs and/or video footage are just specific moments captured for later use. In some cases they can prove something. In many cases they can give us clues, but often without proper context they have to be reviewed and seen very critically, especially for the Second World War. And before, because a lot of high quality footage was produced by propaganda units on all sides. In these cases, certain situations might have been scripted, altered or taken out of context, something Bismarck and I discussed longer in this video. Now, let's go to a specific example again. This reminds me namely of comments on my video about hip firing the MG34. In this video I looked at the German army regulation and what it stated about hip firing, the machine gun. The instructions, everything in order to show that hip firing the MG34 was actually codified in one of the German key regulations for the infantry. A few people commented with video clips from the war that showed that it was done and noted there was no need for my video explanation and look at the regulation since the wartime footage proved it was done. Proved, yeah. Okay, that is quite a special train of thought here. Now let us assume for a second that in a few years, for some odd reason, all cats would die out. I know, very sad. Then fast forward about 70 years after that. Somebody would claim that cats were regularly harvesting melons when they were still alive. While many people would likely note, well no, someone would dig out one of those famous meme pictures of a cat with its paws on the melon, next to a body of water, and note this would be proof for cats harvesting melons. But back to the MG34. Here's the issue. A video clip showing you that an MG34 was fired from the hip in World War II means actually very little. Let's put it into context. The German army had several million soldiers, so it is without question that at one point one guy did it. As mentioned, basically all footage back then was propaganda footage. That means it was often staged as well. So just from the footage we can deduct only two things. One guy hip-fired an MG34 and someone filmed it. Perhaps even for the German Wochenschau, the regular newsreel with updates from the front. Yet it is quite different matter if you have an army regulation that states use this method in this situation, this is how you do it, and here's a picture how you should hold the MG34. And especially if that army regulation is basically the key regulation for all infantry training. And that's why I highlighted the army regulation and the codified sections on hip firing, because it gives us a degree of certainty that there was more to it than some random German Rambo firing into the general direction of an unseen and assumed enemy, or maybe just nothing there because it was scripted. As always, context makes all the difference. There's a clear difference between knowing stuff and understanding stuff. People that know stuff tell you about the number of men, tanks and equipment. Yet they often don't differentiate between authorized strength and operational strength, or they don't mention how these values compare to other similar values. I often put a lot of effort into getting comparable numbers, because as stated in one of my earliest videos, numbers without context are like politicians, in general, highly untrustworthy. Well, I hope you learned something new. Big thank you here for Bismarck from Military Aviation History for vital input into the script. Thank you to Malte for sending me the book about German half-tracks. Also thanks to Doyle and Malte for helping me identify the gun in question. Thanks to Jentz and the Military History Museum Dresden for making the original video possible in the first place. Thank you to the Panzer Museum Munster for inviting me to Start auf der Heide 2019. Also a big thank you to all my supporters on Patreon and Subscribestar. As always, sources are listed in the description. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching and see you next time.